So I think that it comes from having a goal, being really passionate about a goal and not being afraid to go for it, and then kind of just controlling what you can control. Like, I can't control what other people say about it. I can't control what other people feel about it, but I can control how I feel about it and what I learn from it.
Alex, did you, as a family, did you guys go to the movies during the summer as a kid?
I don't really think so, actually. The only movie that I remember going to as a child was when my grandparents took me to Braveheart by accident as like a 10-year-old.
Sons of Scotland, I am William Wallace.
Because I think they were like, oh, a Scottish action movie, that should be fun. And then I just remember being totally traumatized. But I can't remember any other blockbusters that we went to as a family.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why.
It's rare that there is a film about climbing that makes it to mainstream theaters. Girl Climber is a brand new feature film from Louder Than 11 that chronicles Emily Harrington's odyssey to free climb El Cap in a day. It hits IMAX this weekend and then follows with a run across hundreds of theaters across the country. Alex, what did you think?
Like you said, it's pretty exciting to see real climbing on a big screen. It's like I feel like normally when you go to movie theaters and you see climbing, it's just this gross misrepresentation of what climbing is. And Girl Climber is very much real rock climbing. I mean, Emily frees El Cap in a day, and it's quite a journey for her to get there, and it's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Obviously there have been some breakthrough films, like, of course, Free Solo, The Alpinist, Dawn Wall. But this is the first time that there's been a feature focused on a woman, which has been like a long time coming and probably like badly needed. Alex, you're in the film, but you're basically like a sidekick, especially as a father of two girls. How cool is it to see something like this get made finally?
No, I think it's really cool. I will say, I think Girl Climber is probably a much more relatable film than any of the other films like Free Solo or The Dawn Wall or Alpinist or anything else that's been on the big screen.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that audiences will be able to see a lot of themselves in Emily's journey, her struggle. I mean, it's just so open and honest, and she's so vulnerable, and she's open about her fears of failure, and her, it's just real. What she's doing is still incredibly hard, and realistically, nobody will actually be able to do that. And I think in many ways, it's a more inspiring film than some of the other mainstream climbing films. I don't think that many people watch Free Solo and they're like, I'm gonna do that. That's sick. It's like they might be kind of inspired in a general sense, but they're not like, oh yeah, that's cool. Like that's on my to-do list now. But and I think Girl Climber is probably the same, where no one's gonna watch it and be like, I'm gonna do that. But I don't know. I think the process will be more relatable, maybe.
Yeah, or at least that you can simultaneously be frightened by something and succeed.
Still do it.
Yeah.
I think that for audiences, they look at the wall and they're like, that seems really scary. And Emily is also like, that's really scary. And yet she still manages to do it and, manages to overcome that fear.
Yeah. Pretty cool. So today we sit down with Emily and talk about the journey to free Golden Gate, mentorship, fear, and belonging. The popcorn is on the ready.
I'm Alex Honnold.
I'm Fitz Cahall.
This is Climbing Gold. We're going to the movies. Cool. Okay, let's get down to it. Let's talk about Girl Climber. And so, are you a girl and are you a climber? I guess we'll start with the big questions.
I would say yes, both to both.
Yeah.
Okay. All of the above.
Nailed it. Yeah. Okay. Well, tell us what is Girl Climber?
Girl Climber is a feature-length documentary about me and my climbing life, centered around climbing on El Capitan. That's the pillar of the story that carries it.
Yeah, what specifically are you trying to climb?
I am trying to free climb the Golden Gate route in under 24 hours.
And what's the deal with that? Why freeing El Cap in a day?
For me, freeing El Cap in a day was this sort of culmination of all of my skills and everything I learned in climbing through the years, boiled down into this single 24-hour period this achievement that I sort of, when I first started climbing, that was the first thing I ever heard about was Lynn Hill freeing the nose in a day. And I just thought that was so rad and amazing. And I never thought I would be able to do anything like that. And so it was just this pedestal type of achievement that I had from being a little tiny girl. And then as I grew up and evolved as a rock climber and started expanding my skills a little bit more, it became something that I started thinking was maybe possible for me. And thanks to you, in part, I was able to achieve it.
Do you remember, what do you remember about Lynn Hill freeing the nose in a day?
I don't even think I knew what that meant, honestly. I knew that it was this groundbreaking achievement that kind of like set her apart from other climbers, male and female. And I just felt like that was so unique for a sport to have a woman be someone who could really break a barrier in that way. And so I think I just, in my head as like a 10-year-old, I put her on a pedestal as like, you know, one of the best climbers in the world, male or female. And for me, that was really important. That felt like climbing was something that girls could excel at just as much as boys. And that was really important to me. I think as a young girl, I kind of fought against the idea of femininity and being a girly girl. I always wanted to like be more like my cousins who were boys, and I always wanted to prove myself, and I felt like I always had something to prove when I was a kid. And so I think that's part of what drew me to climbing was, you know, Lynn Hill and her achievement.
Talk about that more. I mean, it really like drew you in more. I mean, you'd already started climbing in the gym before you knew anything about it though, right?
I started climbing in the gym, and part of why I started climbing in the gym was because I was better at it than my cousins who were boys. We were just like incredibly competitive with each other. It was like everything we did had to be a competition, and everything had to be like who was better and who could do this. And it was like we're always like pushing each other to do things that were more daring. And like I broke my arm once because I fell out of a tree because we were trying to like, you know, we were just kind of like pushing the edge of who could go higher and who could go out further and who could, you know, and it was just always this thing that I had in my head that I had to be like, I had to outperform them in every way. And so when I started climbing, I was actually naturally better than them. And that was like one of the only things that I was better than them at.
How many of your cousins have subsequently freed El Cap in a day?
None, zero. I really stuck it to them.
Yeah, that's the spirit. You finally bested them once and for all. Yeah, they're not having an IMAX release, are they? Screw those cousins. Did either of them, any of them, climb or anything?
Yeah, they both climbed. We grew up on the climbing team together.
Oh yeah.
My younger cousin Ben became a youth national champion in like 2000. No, in like 2000, he beat Daniel.
He did?
Yeah, he beat Daniel. Daniel got second.
Wow.
I know.
Do they still climb?
They dabble. Yeah, they climb. My cousins, yeah, they climb a little bit.
You better watch out that maybe they are going to free climb El Cap in a day eventually. Yeah, totally. You're like, oh man, all this effort you put in over the years and they're still going to best you at some point.
I actually did boulder I climbed on the moon board with my cousin Zach like a few years ago, and I was like, damn it, he's still like pretty strong and probably stronger than me on the moon board, but that's not really saying much because everyone's stronger than me on the moon board.
That's funny. You're like, damn it, after being a professional climber for 20 years, he's still better than me on the board.
He climbs like once every 6 months.
So talk about this film project. So, I mean, you're inspired by Lynn, you're inspired by El Cap, but why free El Cap, and then why free El Cap in a day?
I started out as mainly a competition climber, and I was coached by Robin Urbisfield, who's also like a very accomplished competition climber. Obviously, her kids are now professional climbers, some of the best climbers in the world. Nowadays, you just introduce her as Brooke's mom. Yeah. Brooke's mom. Yep. Yeah. So she was my coach back in the day, and I was really focused on competitions because of that. Like that was probably what I focused on for the first 10 years of my climbing. But I also grew up in Boulder, Colorado, which is super fortunate because it's surrounded by outdoor climbing, and I was able to go outdoor climbing and dabble in sport climbing. And then I eventually phased out of competitions and started climbing outdoors more, joined the North Face team right out of college. And that introduced me to a lot of people who were just approached climbing different than I did. People like yourself, Conrad Anker, and I started just diversifying a bit in my climbing. I even went as far as like competing in the Uri Ice Festival and
freaking climbing Mount Everest.
Climbing Mount Everest.
That's
went
about
to
as far
Nepal.
from competition climbing as it gets.
Exactly. It was sort of like this personal exploration of what climbing was to me. I think I'd burnt out of competitions pretty heavily. It was like I just wasn't interested in it anymore, and I didn't really know what I was going to do with my climbing. And that's when I met Adrian, my now husband, on Everest, and moved to California, which was a big change for me. And that's when I started trad climbing and climbing on granite and becoming a beginner again in everything. I think that's the one thing I've been pretty good at in my climbing is I've gone back to the beginning and kind of sucked for a while at a lot of things and then learned how to be better at them slowly. And I think moving to California was kind of the impetus for the start of my trad climbing career.
Girl Climber, the film kind of chronicles the whole process to free climb El Cap in a day. I mean, that process took you how many years? Like a couple years, right?
Yeah, I think I first went to Yosemite and started playing up there, actually with Cedar Wright in 2014 or 2015, something like that.
And then you sent in 2020?
Yes.
How does the experience feel for you 5 years later? I mean, is it slightly surreal to revisit this chapter of your life?
Yeah, it's pretty surreal. I think it's a bit weird because it is like this feature-length film about my life and who I am as a person. And
except that it's about who you were 5 years ago.
Exactly. It's like now 5 years has passed and I have a 2-year-old and I'm just in a very different place in my life. And I think for me, it's just been important to keep that in perspective. Like, okay, this is a snippet of my journey and it's a story. And I'm excited because it's actually pretty fun to like relive it and watch the footage finally and see everything that we went through, me and Adrian and John and you. It's just been kind of a fun process to see it all come together. And it is a good story. I mean, there's a roller coaster and it's a cool like narrative arc. But at the same time, it's interesting because I just feel like such a different person than I was then.
Yeah, I mean, it is a roller coaster for sure. I mean, there's a lot of trauma, a lot of big feelings, as we say with the kids. Talk about that. I mean, how is it seeing that much raw emotion on screen like that?
I think there are moments when it's a little bit intimidating and scary because you're like, oh God, everyone's gonna see this now. And when it was happening, I didn't really anticipate what.
Yeah, you never believe that people will actually see it. No, I mean, I had the exact same experience with Free Solo. You're like, yeah, they're filming, but no one's ever going to see the film.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh my God, it's a real film. It's coming out. You're like, people are seeing it. You're like, that's pretty embarrassing.
It is.
But at that point, the ship has sailed. So there's nothing to do about it anyway.
Yeah, there's nothing to do about it. But also, it's kind of cool in that way because it's like I was just doing my thing and I was being myself and I was like just expressing myself and being vulnerable because I'm up there with people who I really trust. And they just so happen to have a camera. And I thought like, oh, maybe this will be like a little YouTube short at some point, whatever. I never really thought through the idea that it could become like a feature doc, even though I kind of knew that was John's dream for a long time.
Yeah, but a lot of people have dreams. They don't necessarily make it happen. You're kind of like, oh, wow, John actually pulled it off and turned it into a film. Like, incredible.
Exactly. So it's been interesting. And I think I've had to really like come to accept that this is who I am and people are going to see it and it is what it is.
I mean, are you proud of the film?
I am proud of the film. I think in some ways I'm like, I didn't really have much to do with the film. Like I agreed to be filmed and I did the thing, but I think the people who should really be proud are John and Jess and the people who are really involved in putting it together and just kind of like being on the grind every day, going up there, shooting it, and then following through with getting it made. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the way that it's told. I think it's pretty honest and I think it's pretty vulnerable. And I think people relate to it in a way that's inspiring and cool. And yeah, I think it's awesome.
5 years later, are you still proud of the climb in the same way?
Yeah, I'm proud of the climb. I think I have a different perspective because I'm in a different place in my life. And so it's funny because I go to Yosemite and I look at El Cap and I'm like, oh my God, it's so big. Like I kind of can't even remember what it was like to have the like dedication and motivation and time to put into a project like that.
Dude, honestly, I feel like we're having the exact same, like you could be interviewing me about Free Solo. It's all the exactly the same answers. I'm kind of like, well, I had nothing to do with the film. I just let them record it and then they released a movie. And then it's like, yeah, now I go and sit in the meadow and I'm like, oh my God, look at that wall. Like there's no way I would do that. Yeah, totally. You go and sit out there with your toddlers and you're kind of like, I can't even imagine going up on that wall, 4 days a week for like months on end.
Yeah, I mean, it's free soloing is obviously different, but you still go up there. I haven't gone up there.
You haven't even touched El Cap again since?
I haven't even touched it. And I'm kind of like, oh man, like that was such a mission for me. And it took so much. And I just don't know how I had the energy, but I do because I didn't have a kid.
Do you feel a connection with Lynn?
Yeah, Lynn's sort of woven in and out of my life in a lot of ways. Like we're not close now because she lives in Boulder, but I do, whenever I see her, it's always like, she's always just so awesome and supportive. And she's always been like this badass mentor to me. I even got to climb with her when I was like 12 or 11 years old for this La Sportiva photo shoot. And I just thought it was the most amazing thing. We went and climbed Country Club Crack in Boulder Canyon. And she taught me how to hand jam. I haven't really climbed with her recently, but she's this person that I've always sort of like looked up to and had as a mentor. And she came to the film premiere in Telluride, and it was really special. It was really cool. Her and Conrad. Conrad didn't even know he was in the movie. And he was like crying at the end of it. And I was like, dude, you did like a 5-hour interview for it. You don't remember?
I mean, do you feel like you've sort of accepted the torch from Lynn to some extent? I mean, in the way that she inspired a whole generation of climbers, I mean, do you feel like this is your opportunity to sort of inspire, a generation of...
I think in a small way, I hope I inspire climbers and non-climbers with the story. I mean, obviously, it's quite a different achievement than being like the first person to free climb El Cap in a day. That's like kind of a once in a couple generation achievement that she had. So mine is on a much lesser scale.
Yeah, that's the thing. It might be like a smaller climbing achievement, but in some ways the storytelling is actually much more compelling and more because the thing about Lynn freeing the nose in a day is that there are some pretty iconic photos, but there's no film, there's no story. So I grew up seeing the poster, but that's really different than watching the film. Yeah,
you don't have like a visceral feeling of what that person went through. And I think there is a part of me that hopes that I inspire people. I think I do. Yeah, climbers and non-climbers. Like I think the story is very relatable to people who don't climb actually. And
yeah, I mean, in some ways, it's not even you inspiring people. It's like the film inspiring people, like the story inspiring people. But that was always something I differentiated with Free Solo. People watch the film Free Solo, and I'm like, well, they don't know me, and like they don't care about me. They're just inspired by the story, or excited about the imagery and whatever.
Yeah, and that's why I always talk about the filmmakers, because like plenty of people have these really awe-inspiring, like amazing human experiences in all places, but El Cap in particular. But I just so happen to have like a film crew with me the whole time capturing it and creating a film that inspires people because, I was having real human experiences up there.
I mean, how did it feel throughout the process? I mean, without giving too many spoilers for the film for anybody who's going to watch it, I mean, there were some big ups and big downs. And how did it feel having a film crew for all that?
I don't know if you agree, but I'm pretty used to it. And I felt really comfortable. In some ways, I almost prefer it, having someone like next to me with a camera. I mean, I guess when you're free soloing, it's quite a bit different, but it's kind of nice. I like it. It's comforting having people up there and like encouraging you. It just feels supportive. And, as long as you trust the person. And for me, John and I just went through so much and we're super close friends. And I think that it was just really nice having him there. And in some ways it just kind of helped propel me along because we were kind of like, it was almost like we were in it together, like, okay, we're going to go back and we're just going to like give it another try.
Do you feel like you tried harder because you like, I don't want to say owed it to the film crew, but it's like when your friends sort of expect you to do a thing and you're sort of like, oh, I want to give up, but I don't want to let down my friends. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to try. I mean, did you have any of those sensations along the way where you're kind of like, oh, I've made it such a public goal with all my community for so long. I can't give up on it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know if that's like bad to admit.
Well, that's what everybody does when they like sign up for a marathon or something. You know what I mean? Like most goals people like sign up for.
I don't know. I think like skiers, like big mountain skiers call it like Kodak courage. Like when there's a camera on you, sometimes you just like go bigger and try harder. But even if I'm like, sometimes I'll even like set up my phone on like the kilter board and I'll send my project because I know that I'm recording it.
I was like, do you feel like you do better? You know, it's funny. I never film things, and I actually think I might start. I'm like, it might be time to start recording some of these things, just like see what I'm doing wrong on stuff, and I don't know.
Well, and that's also helped me a lot. I look back at it, and I actually do learn things from watching myself climb. So.
And so do you think you'll learn more from seeing yourself climb on an IMAX screen? When it's ultra big, do you think you'll be able to really fine tune your foot placements better?
No, I don't. I will say though, I did learn things from, because people do know this. John made like a little YouTube short of like the first time I climbed Golden Gate over 6 days. And when I went back to try to do it in under 24 hours, I couldn't figure out how to do the down climb, like one of the crux pitches. And I just like couldn't figure it out. I was just like, how did I do it? I don't know how I did it. And so I went back to the film and I watched the film, like that part over and over and over again, just trying to figure it out. And eventually.
Did you figure it out?
Yeah, there was like the most subtle detail. It was like the turning, like the way my heel was turned on one of the holds or something. Instead of like facing out, it was like more straight on. And that was the difference.
And you found that watching a video of yourself doing the pitch from
I
years
did.
before?
I was like I was like pausing and rewinding and pausing and rewinding, like, because I knew, like I tried it so many times. I knew it was like this one move and it was like a foot drop move that I just kept blowing off. And finally.
That's so funny. Because I remember having a day with you up on the down climb where I think you failed on the down climb that day. And then we wrapped. That was the day we got stuck in a thunderstorm or whatever, right?
That was the day with the hail.
Yeah, that was like still the most serious rain I think I've ever experienced in an El Cap.
And so sudden. And that guy was in the monster. And he was there for the whole storm.
Oh, I don't remember that guy. That guy must have had a character building experience for sure.
There was a guy in the middle of the monster and we were just looking at him. And then we, like, after the storm was over, we were like, oh my God, he's still there.
Dude, he was. I'm surprised he didn't get flushed because all I remember is that it felt like we were whitewater rafting or something. Like when you put your foot against the wall, like, you know,
waterfall.
Like flumes of water came out. Like it was
waterfall.
Crazy. Yeah, it was insane. We'll be back with more after the break.
Dude, I just had like one of my favorite jackets just totally explode. You test a lot of the gear for the North Face. Does it hold up?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about testing products is that they don't all hold up. I mean, sometimes zippers break, sometimes pull tabs rip off, sometimes things happen. I mean, that's the whole point of prototyping is that you're using a sample. And so occasionally good ideas don't work out. For any product, there's always a trade-off between ultralight and ultra durable. And so, you know, if you're getting the lightest, thinnest down jacket and then trying to climb it off with, you're going to shred your jacket. You know, it's like you just have to have the right tool for the right job.
Do you do anything different, like when you're actually working with the prototypes from the North Face? Do you intentionally like crawl into a heinous off width and see what happens?
Not so much intentionally. I mean, I never try to destroy my things because, you know, I like my jackets. I like my gear. I will say I've intentionally put them into some challenging situations, particularly the waterproofing and some of the layers like that, where I'm like, oh, this is supposed to be the new waterproof layers. Let's go out on a winter storm advisory day and see if I can climb this mountain. In that particular case, I got completely destroyed, but I was like soaked all the way to the bone. But that wasn't by any fault of the layers. It was just, it turned out the storm was way gnarlier than I thought, and I fell down in the snow like a million times, and it turned into kind of a survival experience. The North Face has you covered. Discover gear designed to take you to new heights at thenorthface.com.
When you were training in your garage, what is your like go-to jam?
Rock. And any kind of like 2000s rock, metal, you know, punk, whatever.
Like the louder the better?
Actually, I forget, one of my friends was describing me as listening to really heavy metal very quietly all the time. Because it's like I don't really want to disturb other people too much, but I do love listening to rock. Like I think like a conscientious metalhead. You know?
So you're like, it's like not louder than 11. You're like, maybe like 4.5. Where are you at?
Exactly. I turn it up to 3.5, enough so that I can hear it and I can love it, but I'm not bothering anybody else.
You like your music to sound good and crisp. What do you use in the gym?
In my gym here, we're using the Turtlebox Ranger. It's like a little portable Bluetooth speaker.
Like something you could throw in a backpack.
I mean, for Tahoe lifestyle right now, it's amazing. Actually, the babies love carrying it around because it's kind of like big and robust and you don't worry about it breaking.
Is she
Like
into
that.
Tooled as well?
Well, if there's any luck in this world, then yes, both my children. So far, my children seem to mostly be into Frozen, but I'm working on Tool.
You're not alone in that.
I think I also say like it's very easy to connect to my Turtlebox speakers via Bluetooth. And that's like a major pet peeve of mine. And so I think the ease of connection and the ease of use is a big plus for me. We're sort of like, oh, literally the first time I took it out of the box, I connected to it easily and everything just worked seamlessly. Designed for the outdoors, Turtlebox makes durable and portable Bluetooth speakers in a range of sizes so you can take your music anywhere. Find out more at turtleboxaudio.com.
I'm going to jump in here because I feel like hearing you guys talk about that moment with a thunderstorm, and then Emily, you're like, well, it's really the filmmakers, but like, I'm calling BS here because like the truth of it is like, I've watched a lot of climbing films, and one, this was like really like, it was very open and it was very real and it showed the struggle, and like a lot of crazy shit happened like through this whole process, this journey that you took with this route. It is not like just some small thing. And a lot of people would have quit at some point and been like, let's figure out how to make a different film or whatever it is, right?
Totally.
We'll just like spin it. She's going to quit, but we'll like spin it into something meaningful.
I mean, I think that when I watched this film, I felt like resiliency was a superpower of yours, where a lot of really bad things happened. You got really hurt on one of the attempts. I mean, you had to ask yourself, do I really want to do this? Because this is actually, one, really hard, and two, kind of dangerous, and clearly at some sort of limit for you. So I don't know. I just don't want you to undersell that, because I thought that was a really cool element of this film of like, it's pretty badass. And a lot of people are really going to resonate with how much you work to do. And I'm curious, like, did you ever think about quitting in this whole process? Because when I watch the film and I see what you went through, I'm like, damn, that's a lot.
I mean, thank you. I appreciate that. I am proud of it. Like, I don't want to dismiss that. I just feel like it was really hard for me, and it was really a cool journey for me to go through. And I'm just like really grateful that I had all the support that I had to be able to pursue it. So no, I didn't really think about quitting, because I just was always motivated and always inspired by it, if that makes sense. Like, even after I fell, I kind of took a lot of responsibility for that event. That was all something that was within my own control. Do you know what I mean? Like, that was a mistake that I made by like running it out too much and kind of like moving too fast and forcing myself to climb on a day that I really didn't want to go climbing. So it was all this stuff that happened that I was like, oh, I can totally change things in the future and prevent that from happening. And like, yeah, it might be hard and I might get scared, but I can totally like change the situation to make it better. It's not like this random occurrence that is uncontrollable. So I guess I always felt like I had a lot of agency over the goal itself and like the risk I was taking. And I just always felt like it was something that I wanted to see through to completion. And I just, I don't know. It never really crossed my mind. I remember John asking me after I fell, like, okay, like no pressure. Like, he kind of assumed that I was going to quit. And I was just like, well, I don't know. Like, let me give it 6 months and I'll go back and try again, and I'll fix some things and I'll get better, and I'll just get better. And I think, I don't know, I surround myself with a lot of people who are just so much better at this stuff than me, like Alex, like, Jordan Cannon, people who are just so competent up there. And I think I've always really been inspired by that and sort of envied that and wanted to be like that. And so for me, this was like my journey towards that.
How bad was the fall? Like, I don't mean to make you guys like relive that moment. You obviously shared that together. How traumatic was that?
I think it was more traumatic for people who witnessed it.
Man, seeing the film again and hearing the audio and everything, I was like, oh God. I was like, oh, it's terrible. It's like terrible.
It's like when something bad happens to you and you get in an accident and you lose consciousness or whatever. Like, I fell 50 feet and hit my head and lost consciousness and had to be full rescue. But I actually got super lucky and I walked out of the hospital that night against kind of all odds. Like, it's kind of crazy that there was absolutely nothing wrong with me except for a concussion.
Yeah, yeah. What were your actual injuries? Yeah, you had a concussion and you were a little banged up, like you were bleeding and stuff. Oh, you had the crazy rope burn around your neck, which was obviously disconcerting. It looked like you'd been hung.
Yeah, I had a rope burn like along my neck because I guess I flipped upside down and hit the rope with my neck and it like rubbed all across. But I think it was definitely like watching the film now, it's pretty traumatic to watch. It's like hard to watch for me. I often like look away or
Yeah, skip the scary parts.
Sometimes I like leave the theater when that part comes on.
I mean, Fitz, when you're talking about resilience and kind of, I think to me the interesting thing is kind of the long-term resilience, like sticking to a project over multiple seasons. I mean, you just kind of said something offhand like, oh, I'll come back in 6 months. And I think that's an interesting point that with Yosemite projects, you basically have the spring and the fall. And so you always have 6 months in between different attempts where you can sort of regroup and train and get psyched again. And I think that's kind of the interesting, this idea of sort of like long-term resilience where you're like, oh, I will see this project through over the course of many years. And I think that's maybe something that the average person doesn't experience as much of, you know, like, I mean, even for an all-consuming project like this, I mean, that you really want to do, the reality is that you can only try it, you know, for a bit on and off for the spring and then a bit again on and off in the fall. And so it really requires like this long-term dedication to it. Talk about that a little bit, because I remember some of your attempts. I was always kind of like, well, if you don't do it, just chill for a couple days and try it again later that week. And you were like, no, because basically you'd give it like all you could give for your burn, and then you'd be like done for the season, you know, because each burn was like such a big lift for you. You know, it was like requiring so much of you.
It was hard to try more than once per season. I think the time I tried twice was the time that I like crashed and burned and took that bad fall.
Oh, yeah. Classic.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just have always adopted that mindset as from being like a little kid and a climber. Like having these big goals and not reaching them is just such a normal part of like what we do. It's almost like it's baked into me from youth and from competitions and stuff like that. Like we often fail at things. We often have like a laundry list of projects that we haven't completed yet or will never complete. And I think LCAP is it's kind of like the behemoth of all of them because it is big and it is like complicated and it requires a lot, and it requires a lot outside of your control as well, like partners and having the season line up, and it's so much more involved than like a single pitch sport climb. But it's still the same mindset. And I think as a climber and as someone who's been climbing for as many decades as I have, and someone who kind of, I like to be inspired by people who have these big goals, and I kind of draw from other worlds as well. You know, there's alpinists out there who throw themselves at the same 8,000 meter peak season after season after season. And so I think I like look to those types of sports of like, oh, well, at least I'm not like going to Pakistan every winter and trying to like climb an 8,000 meter peak in winter.
Yeah, well, by that comparison, you're like, LCAP is easy.
It's like super chill, right?
Every season, yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah,
like
totally.
David Gottler, like a German alpinist, he finally like climbed Nanga Parbat, and it was like 8 years of effort, and he just was like always going back, and like that's way more than just like driving into the valley and, you know, going sky cragging on LCAP and climbing with your friends. So I guess like comparison sometimes works.
Yes, I mean, do you actually use that as, you know, I mean, you know, you can say that, but then the reality is that you still drive into the valley and you look at the wall and you're like, oh my God, that's so daunting. Yeah, exactly. It's still too much.
Of course. But I also, you know, like even using my husband as an example, like Adrian, same thing. Like he exists in that high altitude climbing world, and it's just like so much, even more involved than what we do, big wall climbing. And so I think for me, it's just, I find those stories inspiring, and I like to have my own version of that. And I kind of like the idea of having these big audacious goals that you fail at over and over again. I mean, I still have it now, even as a mom, even though a lot of things I haven't even tried or I haven't even like put the energy towards, it's still in my brain as like something that I want to do, or there's little things that I want to do. And I kind of even use that in my parenting as well. Like parenting is also like one big long expedition that in general you kind of like feel like you're failing at a lot of times.
Emily, since you sent Golden Gate and since they made the film, you know, we both have had kids. You have a 2-year-old. What's changed for you and what's stayed the same? We'll be back with more after the break.
I feel like the desert just works me. It drains the water out of me like crazy. How do you stay hydrated?
I think the desert destroys you because you're from the Pacific Northwest, so you're like a plump grape just waiting to get shriveled. But I'm already like a tight little raisin living in the desert, so I think I'm a little bit more heat adapted. I mean, you do physiologically heat adapt a little bit, but then also you just have to be super on top of drinking enough fluids and making sure you get electrolytes. And so when I do big missions in the desert, I do often use LMNT.
Do you see like friends that come visit a lot? Do you see them get just worked?
I was recently hanging out at home, and 3 friends who had been adventuring in Red Rock that had actually been traipsing around in full afternoon sun looking for one of their lost phones on a trail. So they spent hours just walking back and forth in the desert in the sun. They showed up at the house, and I gave them each 2 cans of the LMNT sparkling water, and it seriously looked life-giving. They were so worked and so parched, and they just chugged it. They were like, this is so good. It was like the best thing they'd ever had. I think the LMNT sparkling water is especially good when you're very thirsty.
What makes LMNT different from other electrolyte mixes?
LMNT has way more salt than most mixes. There's also no sugar, but it also has the things you'd expect like potassium and magnesium. So it makes your water delicious, and it has everything you need and nothing that you don't. Get a free 8-count sample pack of LMNT's most popular drink mix flavors with any purchase at drinklmnt.com/climbinggold. That's drinklmnt.com/climbinggold. Find your favorite LMNT flavor or share it with a friend.
You guys have been backpacking as a family, haven't you?
Yeah, we went a couple weeks ago.
How does it go? I mean, like, that's always like there's some parents that come back scarred because they're like, my children got so hungry. They like imploded, and then it was a disaster, and then we lost our minds. Like, how'd it go for you guys?
Yeah, it went pretty well. I think the key to successful backpacking are snacks. Snacks to keep the kids motivated, snacks to keep them from bonking, basically giving kids snacks nonstop. But then to keep her actually fueled, we could give her Kodiak's new sweet and salty trail bar, little protein bars, what we call technical snacks, like snacks that you get to eat in the outdoors because that's what you eat on adventures.
What flavor did you guys take on the backpacking trip?
We had the cranberry chocolate chip. Seemed good.
Each bar is packed with 7 grams of protein per serving.
Made with 100% real chocolate.
And 100% whole grains.
It's very convenient. You can take it on any kind of journey. Keep your wild ones going with protein-packed granola bars. Find Kodiak Sweet and Salty Trail Bars at your local store. They're the ones with the bear on the box. Or learn more at kodiakcakes.com. So, Emily, since you sent Golden Gate and since they made the film, you know, we both have had kids. You have a 2-year-old. What's changed for you and what's stayed the same?
I mean, my love for climbing has stayed the same, if not grown, because it's like this part of me that like gets to be mine, and I get to like, when it's my me time or my alone time or like time for myself, that's what I choose to do with it. And so it's very precious now, and it's really motivating. And in some ways, I think I'm a stronger, better climber for that. I'm like way more focused and disciplined. That's kind of like more or less stayed the same, like my drive to keep trying hard and have objectives. But what's different is that they look quite a bit different, right? My tolerance for risk has changed quite a bit. And I always was someone who was like, I'm not going to change when I have a kid. Like, that's not going to affect me. I'm going to be like the mom that goes on expeditions and like continues to do all these things. And I was really afraid that that would change when I had a kid. And then exactly what I was afraid of happened. But I have had like essentially the opposite reaction to it.
You don't mind it happening?
Not at all. I have no issues with like backing off of things. Like, it happens less in climbing. It's like I'm less into going on like big expeditions to far away places for long periods of time because I want to spend time with my son and I want to be with him and I want to share experiences with him, and I just don't want to be away for that long. And that was something I was afraid of changing, and it changed, and I'm like, yeah, that's just who I am now. It's totally fine. And then in terms of risk, like, yeah, with mountain stuff or skiing, a lot of things I'm just fine being like, oh, maybe I could do that, but I don't really see the value in it anymore. And to me, it's not really worth it. And I just feel really comfortable with that. And I think in a way it's been pretty liberating. Like, I'm just kind of like, cool, like this is who I am. And I'm super stoked on it. And I'm really happy. And I actually feel great about it. So yeah, I would say that's changed quite a bit. Like, I was afraid of changing in that direction, and then I did. But surprisingly, I'm perfectly okay with it. In fact, I feel great about it.
I found that kind of interesting because I get asked that a lot also, and I'm kind of like, I don't know, I don't really feel like anything's changed too much. I don't really know. I'm sort of like, oh, we're so different. But I wonder how much of that is just around being a mom. Like, there's so much more of a physical and like hormonal. There's just like so much more change that happens as a mom.
And I think it's like faded a little bit over the years. Like we'll see what happens in the next few years, but like
You mean
right
have another
away,
baby?
yeah, if I have another baby, well then
Yeah.
it'll reset the clock
Yeah,
for
exactly.
sure.
Exactly.
But like the first year after Arrow was born, we went to Yosemite and I had a really hard time kind of doing anything. I was also breastfeeding, so that was really hard and I just underestimated breastfeeding entirely. But I had all these ideas to like go climb on El Cap and go try all these things. And I just got there and was like
You were like, no chance.
really nervous. Everything scared me. Even like looking at El Cap scared me. And I was just like, oh my God, I have so much anxiety being here. It's so hard. That was really hard for me. And so I kind of reset my expectations and went back last year, which would have been my second year. And then I just kind of tried things that I felt a little bit more comfortable doing but still kind of like pushing that edge, but not so far that I was like terrified every day. And that actually helped quite a bit more. But still, it's been a lot of baby steps. And I think maybe it is partially biological. Like, I think I've read things that like mothers' brains change after they give birth. And, it kind of just like changes the way you think about things. And I definitely feel like I feel that.
Can we talk about Hillary and your relationship with Hillary and,
Yeah.
how she sort of served as a mentor, a friend, like almost a sister figure?
Yeah, so Hillary was this totally big sister figure for me. Growing up, I'm an only child, and I always wished for an older sister, actually. And Hillary kind of filled that role.
But would you have wanted one quite as rad as Hillary? She'd be the most intimidating older sister.
She would be intimidating.
She was Hillary Nelson was the team captain on the North Face team, and just what a boss. I mean, she looked like Wonder Woman or something. I don't think you'd want her as a big sister because growing up in the
look like Wonder
shadow
Woman.
would be very. It would be too much.
No, it'd be awesome. She was so great. She was like a Wonder Woman. She was a ski mountaineer, very prolific ski mountaineer, one of the best of her generation. And she also juggled the motherhood side of things in a way that I found to be super inspiring. And at a time where I think it was quite difficult to do both and maintain a career and maintain relevance. And she really fought for that. And yeah, I was lucky enough to go on a bunch of expeditions with her. The first one being to Mount Everest in 2012. And that expedition was funny because I think I was really young and she kind of wrote me off as like, she didn't really want to be a mentor. That like wasn't really her place. If you want to talk about resiliency, like Hillary was someone who did not ever let go of like a goal. She just wanted to push and push and push and push and achieve something. And she did it on a level that was these like massive ski mountaineering objectives in these faraway places. And she almost always wanted to go to like the most remote corner of the earth and like ski something rad or climb something rad. I was lucky enough to be able to join her on a couple of these missions. And we just had this really cool partnership. I think we both kind of fed off of each other and I just looked up to her so much and we had so much fun together. I think I saw the lighter side of her in a lot of ways, the side that like had a lot of humor and yeah, had a lot of fun. And I was super lucky it kind of came full circle in the end because I got pregnant and I really wanted to go on a ski expedition. I'm also a skier. I've been skiing since I was very young. And one of my dreams has been to go on a North Face like ski expedition. So I was invited to go to Baffin Island to go ski couloirs with Christina Lusty, Brett Harrington, and Hillary. But I became pregnant like right before the trip. And I called Hillary and told her, and she was like, okay, it's going to be okay. Like, I've done this before. Like, I did it when I was 2 months pregnant, and I'm going to be there. It's going to be totally fine. It's going to be great, and I'm going to vouch for you. And so she vouched for me, and she was like, it's going to be fine. Emily's pregnant. She's got this. Like, we're going to do this. And we went to Baffin, and we just had this, like, incredible trip. And she totally kind of watched out for me in a way. Like, I was already at the phase where I was, like, not really wanting to do, like, too much, that was super risky. And she kind of became my ski partner on that trip. And we just had the best time ever. And it was so much fun. And that was her last expedition. So it was this like very fitting, like full circle moment where she kind of like helped usher me into this next phase of my life, being a mother.
Yeah. Have you in turn mentored anybody like that? I mean, I feel like she provided such a spot in your life. I mean, is there anybody that you've kind of helped along the way like that, or do you see the film doing that to some extent?
Well, I hope the film does it for sure. I think I'm kind of coming into that position now, honestly. I feel like that some of the younger athletes, especially on the North Face team, because it is like a team that kind of does a lot together. We get together quite a lot. That's kind of where I built my career. So I kind of see it as this great place for that. And hopefully I can come into that role in the next few years for some of the younger athletes on the team. I've been working with this nonprofit called Z Girls. It's kind of like mental health coaching for adolescent girls, like ages 11 to 15-year-olds, kind of helping them with like all of the struggles of being a young girl. It's basically like what you wish you had when you were a kid, someone to talk to about failure and insecurity and vulnerability and stuff like that. And so I've been helping out with that. Basically, they pair professional athletes with this group of girls, and we go through and we talk about all of these things. And so that's been a pretty cool way to like reach more than one, and be a mentor in that way.
When do you start doing that? That's cool.
I just started this summer. So, and the film is kind of like helping elevate this organization. And it was founded by an ex like pro ski racer. And so, yeah, her idea was to kind of like help girls with their confidence at this like really vulnerable time in their lives. Like when you're a young teen girl and you're going through all these changes, and it's like just a really hard time, I feel like. And so, yeah, she founded this organization, and it's online. So a lot of it is for more like underprivileged girls. And yeah, it's a like online platform, and we go through like a lesson plan and we talk and I tell my story, and they work with other athletes as well. So it's been really fun. It's been cool.
That's cool. Yeah, good for you. Speaking of that, I mean, one of the themes that you kind of touch on in the film is like the sense of belonging, or like belonging to, I don't want to say the in crowd of climbers, but basically feeling like part of your ambition on El Cap was to feel like you belong to that group. Can you talk about that a little bit? I mean, after free climbing Golden Gate in a day, and now with the release of the film and stuff, do you feel like you belong? Like, or is that something that comes from the inside? You know, it's like basically has achieving your goal made you feel more belonging, or is that something that just happens either way, or just never happens regardless?
I think it's a really good question, because I do think it is something that is more internal in a lot of ways. Like, I think in terms of like the in crowd or like belonging, that's something that comes from like being proud of yourself and being confident in who you are and feeling secure with who you are. And I think, yeah, there were times when I didn't feel that way up there. I didn't really know what I was doing. I felt like I was kind of a little bit of an outsider, and like maybe I didn't deserve to be up there. I think a lot of people deal with that sort of like imposter syndrome, no matter who you are. I mean, a lot of like the most badass, best athletes and professionals I know kind of admit to this. So I think in a lot of ways that comes from within. And I think my journey on El Cap was a part of kind of reckoning with that, and a part of recognizing like why I was doing it and why I was up there. If I wanted to just like belong to a group, I don't think I would have like stuck with it as long as I did. It had to really be this like internal motivation to succeed at something, because I really wanted to do it for myself. But that said, of course there are like weak moments, especially with the film coming out, where you're like, oh my God, like what are people gonna think? Like, I can't believe that this clip is in there of me crying. You know, there's like, of course there's like insecure moments, you know. I'm just a person who still struggles with everything that everyone else struggles with. So yeah, I think there was a desire to belong, and there still is, of course, but I think I've definitely grown and matured in a lot of ways.
It's interesting though to hear you talk about imposter syndrome, or just kind of feeling like, you know, you don't belong on a wall like that, because, you know, I think from an outside perspective, before you ever even climbed on El Cap, you'd already climbed Mount Everest, you'd won international competitions, you know, you were arguably one of the better climbers in the world. or certainly, like in the highest percentage of climbers. And so I think to a layperson, they'd be like, wait, if you don't belong up there, then who does belong up there? You know what I mean? And so it just comes back to like where does like self-confidence come from, or like that sense of belonging? Like, where does it come from? Because I think, anybody looking at it from the outside would be like, oh, you obviously belong there. Like, even if you're not experiencing that particular thing, like you will learn because you're one of the best.
I think it comes from within. I think it comes from being sure of your motivations and doing things for the right reasons in a way. For me, there's been weak moments where I've felt like, okay, I've dabbled in a lot of things. Like, yeah, I've climbed Everest, but I can always come up with a but, right? Like, I've climbed Everest, but
with oxygen.
Like, whatever. Yeah, with
Yeah,
oxygen, but it's not that big of a deal. I've like free climbed Golden Gate in a day, but, whatever. Someone did it better, whatever.
But I bonked my head on the way up. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Like, oh, I've done really well in World Cup competitions, but I like didn't do that many. I can always have a but. And I think that's just kind of like a natural human reaction in a way when you're like feeling insecure or you're feeling like being hard on yourself. And I think I do have a tendency to do that. I've always had a tendency to do that ever since I was really young. Just have that kind of like extra. It comes from being like a perfectionist, right? Like, oh, I got an A, but I didn't get an A plus, right? I've just been that way in my life, and I've kind of had to be aware of it. I think that's a part of who I am. But I think as I've grown up and matured, I've been able to recognize that part of me and think more clearly about like what I want and who I am and how I want to show up for myself and for others around me. And it's not that way. Like, I don't want to be that like self-deprecating person all the time who's always putting myself down and kind of like punishing myself. So I think that it comes from within. I think it comes from having a goal, being really passionate about a goal and not being afraid to go for it. And then kind of just controlling what you can control. Like, I can't control what other people say about it. I can't control what other people feel about it, but I can control how I feel about it and what I learn from it.
You call yourself a perfectionist, and I feel like a problem for many perfectionists is not doing things that they want to do because they can't do it perfectly. Like, if you can't do it right, don't do it at all type of thing. And I feel like, I know a few people who are kind of like that, where it's like, if they're going to do something, they have to do it properly, but if they're not positive they can do it correctly, then they just don't do it, things like that. And so watching the film, this is, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen it, but you send, big surprise, like you do it, but it's so scrappy. You fight to the death. You fight to the very limit. It's like there's blood, sweat, and tears, and it's like max effort. And I think that's what makes it so powerful is that you see the audience gets to see you dig all the way, like just give everything you have. And that's, it's incredible, and it's super moving. I'm curious, is that the experience that you were looking for up on the wall? Like, were you trying to dig that deep, or would you prefer to have just hiked it casually in 6 hours and been like, oh, what an easy day out? You know what I mean? Like how much of it was an exploration of your own limits versus trying to achieve a specific route?
That's a great question, because we also, like, John talked to me a lot post like filming the film about like the idea of perfection and the pursuit of perfection. He actually wanted to name the film something to do with perfection for a while there. And in a lot of interviews, I was like asked a lot about that. So it is kind of like a theme of the movie, I think, in a way, is this idea of wanting to be perfect and doing everything perfectly, but then recognizing that my absolute limit just didn't allow for perfection, allowed for a lot of like downfalls and a lot of vulnerabilities and kind of a lot of bearing all of my imperfections in a way. The objective did kind of do that for me. I think at the outset, when I first came up with the idea, I would have preferred to...
You were hoping to hike it. Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Look at me. Like, this is amazing. Like, I'm just like everybody, I'm just like Alex. Just casual day out, super civilized. But I think as you get older and as you really like dig your heels into things and things don't go the way that you want them to go, you kind of naturally learn to accept those parts of yourself that may not be perfect. At this point in my life and in my career, I've accepted that I'm like not the best at anything, and I never really have been, but I try really hard. And I don't think I'm a perfectionist anymore at all. I also think like becoming a parent, like kind of beats the perfectionist out of you.
Totally.
In a lot of ways.
Totally. Yeah, real life just hammers you down. You're like, goodbye, perfection.
I was like resisting it for so long. And then I had a kid and I was like, oh, wow, that's not happening.
Yeah, you're like, now I'm just wiping the poop off all the things in the house. You're like sad. Like, things
Happened
just
this
happen.
morning. We're
Oh,
working
yeah?
on we're in potty training mode.
Oh, wow.
It's-
Oh, wow,
it's
that's
an
exciting, though.
Epic failure this morning. But yeah, like I guess it's a good point. I've always been willing to try things. I think I've been pretty good at that. I think that's one of my strengths is that I'm actually pretty okay with becoming a beginner again at things and really fighting for things and trying really hard even when I know that failure is like a super likely possibility. So I guess climbing and Parenthood has taught me to not try to be perfect.
You're like a really open-hearted perfectionist. Where you're like, oh, willing to try things, willing to see where they go, even though you want to do them great, still try them anyway.
Yeah, but I still get really pissed when it doesn't go my way.
Yeah, well.
If that,
Yeah. So what did you learn from the whole process? Like seeing the film, like what do you feel like you gained from the whole experience?
I think I learned that I do think I did the thing after I did it where I was like, oh, this isn't good enough. I was like kind of proud of myself, but I also wasn't proud of myself. Like there was a part of me that was like a little bit ashamed in a way, like what you said, that it was like took so much effort and I dug so deep and I had to try so hard. And there was a part of me that like I remember that I didn't really let myself feel proud or excited or accomplished because it was like, oh, well, I could have done it better or someone else will do it better than me. It's that sort of feeling. But since the film's come out, I've sort of seen how people react to it and how they relate to it. And I've seen how, like, I really wasn't afraid to be vulnerable. And I think that's something to be proud of. I really wasn't afraid to try really hard and to tell the story. And it's like full, in all of it without masking it in any way. And I think that's something to be proud of. And I experienced like a moment of feeling really proud of like myself and of everyone involved at the film premiere in Telluride. It really was this really powerful experience. And I think I was like proud of us in a way. It really was like this team effort. I mean, I keep going back to the filmmakers, but like it just wouldn't have been, it would have been a cool achievement of mine if it was just me, without them. And I'm just really proud and honored that like people believed in the story enough to create a film out of it.
There are a lot of amazing women doing incredible things in climbing. I mean, especially just this year, with Brooke climbing 15C and like Katie Lamb, who we interviewed recently, climbing the first V16 for women. When you see all these women pushing the sport in different directions, I mean, do you think that it gets easier the more women walk a path? It's like the more things like that you see, do you think it gets, I don't know, like you were inspired by Lynn, you've pushed yourself in plenty of ways. I mean, do you think that path gets easier the more women are pushing?
Yeah, I absolutely do. I think it helps when someone like you does something and you see that they're capable of it. I think it's inspiring. I think it's motivating. I think it's so fun. I love seeing where the sport's being taken and I love seeing what people are doing. I think it's just like so impressive. And I think it's cool that like that gap between men and women is seemingly closing a little bit in climbing. It's just like fun and awesome. And I think it does inspire the younger generation to keep going for it and keep trying hard. And yeah, I'm super excited anytime I see someone achieve something badass, like women and men as well. But yeah, I think it's all very motivating. An example is like, I keep going back to the motherhood thing because that's just like where I'm at in my career. But like watching Hillary go through it and like be a mom, that was like something that I saw and was like, oh, okay, like maybe I can do that too. Like maybe I don't have to like quit my career after I have a kid. Like she was an example. Lynn also was an example of someone who had a kid and like continued to push herself and have a career. Like that's something that I saw as like a 20-something-year-old and was like, oh, okay, like maybe I can do this as like a lifelong career.